Welcome to the People, Purpose, and Profits Business Coaching Podcast. I'm Brian Buck, and my wonderful co-host is...
And I'm Kat.
And we are going to do a short episode today because we really want to just have a little bit of fun and make this be an interesting thought experiment. And we want you to think along with us, think of your answers. But Kat was bringing up a post and some interaction she had on an interesting question. What is entrepreneurship? So you want to kick us off, Kat?
Yeah, when I posted that question in the group, it was really interesting because it came from a very curious place to see how people see entrepreneurship. And I constantly say this to my clients, and whenever I talk to someone, I think everybody should try being an entrepreneur because it teaches you so much about resilience, about who you are as a person, about your limiting beliefs, about things that you are not facing. So when I posted that question, it was so interesting to see people range from excitement to fun to possibilities to I'm freaking out, I don't know what to do, it's really hard. So it's like a whole spectrum. And I would really want to invite our audience to see if they were to think of one word right now in this moment, if they are an entrepreneur. If not, I suggest getting in it. But I know that we're addressing mostly business owners. I would love to see for yourself, maybe to notice what is one word that defines entrepreneurship for you? Because the reason why I asked this question is the way we see it dictates how we show up.
What's your one word?
Mine is resilient. Because I learned that no matter if I have highs or I have lows, I will still need to show up. I will still need to push through. I can't get complacent, and I also can't let things put me down. Because we're all human and we are going to face defeat. We're going to, run into things that we don't know how to do. And we're just going to want to run the opposite way. I mean, I've had so many attempts to just say, you know what, I'm throwing in the towel. I can't do it anymore. It just, because it challenges us. It challenges what we know. It challenges, what we've been. And it puts us in a situation to become resourceful, to maybe ask for help when we're uncomfortable. And for me, that is one of the toughest things, I have to admit. Right now, the more and more I'm seeing as I'm growing, it's really hard. And it has been, I thought it was hard, a few years back, but it seems like as I grow, there is this part of me that just wants to know. I want to have it figured out. I don't want to look like I'm the person that needs help. How is that gonna, look for my clients? And I'm like, no, what are you talking about? No, this is not how you talk to yourself. You have no matter where you're at, even the most successful people in the world, they have help. Right.
Well, yeah. And I just had a really wonderful conversation with a peer yesterday, just about the importance of community. And we were talking about self-development. Self-development has its place, and we all have self-responsibility to develop ourselves. But if we think about trying to do it on our own, no one goes far by themselves. We are wired for community. We need people who challenge us. We need peers who are there with us. So I think the whole notion of self-development, yes, yourself will develop, but you aren't doing it by yourself. So I love how you're sharing that. And that's true. I've heard other people say similarly, if you want to know thyself, create a business, because it's going to force all of those things to come out, the good habits, the bad habits, your temperament, your leadership. It'll tell you where you need to improve. It'll tell you where to focus your strengths and time and energy. So yeah, it's definitely huge.
Yeah, it's definitely, what I see it as, it's almost like a magnifying glass into the places you really don't want to look at, and also into the places that you've never looked at that are the most wonderful parts about you.
Yeah. Well, especially, we all know from many studies that have been done is if we work to our strengths, we are more successful. We are happier. We are able to be more productive. We are be more joyful in the work. And even though most workplaces have that as part of their engagement philosophy, there's always the other duties as assigned. There's the shit nobody wants to do. Somebody has to do it. And to a certain degree, that can exist as an entrepreneur. But in an entrepreneur, you have a little more freedom and creativity to really stay in your strengths and partner with people to do their strengths that aren't yours. And so I just think, and that was one of the words that came to me. I have a hard time just choosing one. And I won't use this as my word for entrepreneurship, but I think about so many entrepreneurs, and myself included. Freedom is such a drive. The freedom to do things the way we think is best for our clients, the freedom in schedule, the freedom for our lifestyle. But I think when you talk about the resilience piece, what was coming to me was freedom has to be earned. In other words, we have to do the work to be free. So freedom doesn't come easy. Maybe that's a better word than earned, but we do have to put the effort in to be able to be free. Because if it just happened, we are trust fund people probably, or we got an inheritance. But when we really create our businesses, we do go through the struggles and the being resilient and finding our best selves. And from there, we get freedom. You're squinting. Why are you squinting at my definition?
Because as you're saying this, there's so many things that people say, especially around freedom, that like contradicts, like, one thought contradicts another. And I think freedom in the most liberating sense is enjoying what you do.
Yeah.
And when people work in businesses and love what they do, and I see this a lot with coaches, there is this part that's, even though they want freedom, they do everything possible to make it hard on themselves.
True. Yeah.
So, it's just really, really interesting as you're saying this, how, again, I think it's entrepreneurship is about exploring ourselves and seeing the things that come up. And if you are one of those people who really enjoy what you're doing, is that freedom?
I think it's an aspect of freedom, because I would say, finding joy and peace is something you internally generate, and it's a form of freedom. But I think the freedom of being able to do what you want, when you want, how you want.
But do you, when you have, like, for example, when you have a business, right, you have to show it for your customers. So it's not really when you want to. You have to do the things in business that you might not otherwise like. Do you see that as freedom? And that's really what I'm talking about. So I think it's about the perception of freedom that gives you the actual freedom.
Well, I would say I still believe you can set up systems to meet your customers when they need it. So as an entrepreneur, if you wanted to work 3 days a week for 5 hours, and that's what freedom means to you, then you would work on how do you get enough cash flow, or however you set things up, so you can maybe hire someone to take care of the people. Or if you're a coach or a consultant, you can only take work that are on those 3 days. So you still are able to do some of that. And then the thing that you don't like, yes, you're still responsible, but maybe you hire an accountant, or maybe you hire someone to handle the customer service. And of course, those don't come quickly. But no one's I haven't met anybody who launches a business with a team of 12. Right? It usually starts like a few things to build up to it. But to me, if you want to look at like that time freedom, and one of my passions is helping leaders think about this, and do they know the lifestyle that they want? And then does the business fuel that lifestyle? Because so often, and you and I think have talked about this, is we build our businesses, but we're just building ourselves another job. And so yes, we're doing our own thing, but if it doesn't tie into the lifestyle that we want, then you're not as free. And so it's really
Right.
thinking about how do you get there. And once again, it doesn't come overnight. That's why I say there's the work and the resilience and the learning that helps us get there.
Yeah, and I really do love this because I think honestly, when people start a business, it's really what drives them. Having the say so over what they do, who they help, how they spend their time. So even if they are working 50 hours a week, if that's really what they enjoy, then that is
Right.
freedom. And
For
then,
sure.
also with entrepreneurship, we have the freedom of location, which is really big. And nowadays, look at how the world shifted, right? From going from working in a location to half the world working remotely.
Right.
Right,
Right.
it was a huge change. So I think this is such a beautiful thing about what we do and the way that the world is progressing. I love the flexibility of it.
Yeah.
And also the money freedom, it's really really important, right? Because after all, we do want the finer things in life. We do want to be able to enjoy every moment that we have the way we want it, and this gives us possibilities.
For sure. I just heard Dean Graziosi, I think he was quoting Tony Robbins, was, a lot of people say that money doesn't buy happiness. And he says, well, then you haven't given enough of it away. Meaning that once you're able to be really charitable and you give towards something that you're passionate about and greatly affects that community, there is happiness in that. So yeah, I think there's that piece in not only the money freedom, meaning yeah, what can we get for ourselves, but what can we give? Where else can we invest in our communities and make things better?
Absolutely. And that's a beautiful thing. And I was actually one of the exercises I was doing with the client, and I started doing too, is what are like the possibilities? What can you do when you have that money? Like get into that mindset, get into the feeling of, giving it away, of
Mm-hmm.
contributing to local businesses, of, picking the charities that you want, helping your friends, helping your family,
Yeah,
have that feeling in your body, and then you'll see what they mean by. And I think a lot of times when people say, oh, money but doesn't buy happiness, is their own limitations and money blocks that they have.
for sure. So for me, entrepreneurship means creativity.
Yeah.
I was going back and forth between innovation, but I think behind innovation is creativity.
Creativity.
And because as an entrepreneur, and I also want to extend this conversation to intrapreneurs, because that's actually what I used to do in the corporate world, is someone who is creating new systems, new ideas, new products from within. And so I think there's that piece on creating, and it isn't always creating new, but it's being creative and seeing markets that could use something that already exists and bringing it to them as well. I think there's the creativity and understanding your customers well enough that you could be able to create content or copy that resonates with people. So that's a form of writing, which is a form of creativity. So I think creativity is a huge element of entrepreneurship.
It really is. And it's such a beautiful thing too. And I looked at the way creativity has, emerged for me over the years from, doing simple things around the house. And that's, where it all starts to, building prototypes for products for the market. And then, creating courses and, creating systems for clients and exercises and just like so many different things. I mean, we really are limitless.
Yeah, yeah. One of my favorite things in creativity, I'm spacing on who did this. She was a teacher at Stanford, but she talks about if you pose a problem as what is 5 plus 5, there's only one answer, which is 10. But if you say what two numbers added together would be 10, now you have multiple options. 2 plus 8, -1 plus 11. Like, and all of a sudden, so I think, and as an entrepreneur, we are really kind of biased towards just looking at things from another angle and coming up with many different possibilities. And that's why we can be disruptive in the market and actually create businesses that resonate so well, is because we're doing things people say, I never would have thought of that. That's like, just because we've thought about it and then followed through with the actions on our creativity, all of a sudden we have something highly viable and engaging.
And you know what you said? One word that kind of like really stuck out: disruptive.
Mm-hmm.
I love that word because we really do that. And I think that the way that the world progressed is because we've been disrupted, because we've not only thinking outside the box, but we created a box, right?
I recycled a box.
Right?
Yeah.
So many different angles, and this is why, again, like, this conversation here is just such a great example of what entrepreneurship is about.
Great. Well, I want to hear from our audience. What does entrepreneurship mean to you? So the best way that you can tell us is by joining the Business Purpose and Profits Business Coaching Facebook group, and we post our episodes in there. People can be able to communicate back and forth with other audience members. We want to hear from you, and so put that in there. You can also subscribe to our show either on YouTube or on your podcatcher of choice if you want to listen to us. But we are super excited to be here every week, sometimes more, to be able to help your small to medium-sized business have the hearts and smarts to really sustainably grow and engage and make that impact that has been in your heart for quite some time. Thank you.
We'll see you soon.